What's going on, people? Welcome to another In Motion Football live stream. My name is Alam, and today we're talking all about the wide receivers. We're going to designate this stream exclusively to talking about the receivers in the draft, the teams that need them, and kind of how that lines up on the draft board. So we're going to be looking specifically at not only just who needs a receiver, but how badly they need one, and how that'll probably inform how the draft goes from the standpoint of is a team going to prioritize receiver early in the draft? Are they going to be a little bit more patient about it? So we're going to go through each and every team and sort that out. So the way I'm going to be looking at this, again, because I'm not a draft expert by any means, I'm not a scout, I'm not somebody who's watched these guys extensively. The way I'm looking at it more is just has a team made the commitments to their roster at the wide receiver position or not? Because that's something you can look at objectively. For example, right? Let's look at the Arizona Cardinals, right? The first team on the board. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson, right? So two receivers that they've already committed to. Michael Wilson played a lot of football last year, was very productive. Marvin Harrison Jr., a very high draft pick. Those are two players that are going to see the field. They signed Kendrick Bourne Jr. to a non-insignificant amount of money. And he's obviously a productive player in that wide receiver 3 kind of a role. So putting it this way, they have two young talents at receiver. They have 3 receivers that are going to play. They've made their commitments at the receiver position. So this is a situation I look at that screams to me that, hey, this team is not going to be looking at receiver at the top of the draft. This team is going to have no desperation or even desire really to take a receiver. Now, again, this could go on to be wrong. They could secretly not want Marvin Harrison Jr. anymore, and they could look to draft somebody before trading MHJ. I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you guys the truth or predict what's actually going to happen. I can just give you guys an objective look at again, resources and has the team committed to players at the wide receiver position or not. So Cardinals, I'm going to say no. The Atlanta Falcons, right? You obviously have Drake London at wide receiver 1. And then the interesting thing about this team is they signed 2 receivers. And again, they've made 2 commitments to guys that are going to play, right? Jahan Dotson, they gave $7.5 million a year. He's going to play. Olamide Zaccheaus, who's been wide receiver 3 in 2 offenses in the last 2 years. I think last 3 years even. He's going to be playing. So I say that all to say, Olamide Zaccheaus, Jahan Dotson, Drake London, there's your 1, 2, 3. Now with the Falcons, I would suggest that because Olamide Zaccheaus isn't somebody that you can't upgrade from, and the fact that they've signed 2 receivers essentially to 1-year deals, Jahan Dotson's is a 2-year deal on paper, but there's not enough guaranteed money for it to be a 2-year deal. They could make a draft selection in the Emeka Egbuka kind of a way where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Jalen McMillan under contract when they drafted Egbuka. But the point there was the fact that you probably were losing Mike Evans. So because you don't have the certainty long-term, they drafted a receiver anyways. And the Falcons could make that kind of a decision. But we're going to say the Falcons have a medium level of urgency in terms of drafting a receiver high. Baltimore Ravens, tough call because they essentially have their receiving core from last year. They're a team that has never really prioritized stacking that part of their roster. They've always been kind of comfortable just not having the best receivers in the world. So it's very much possible that they might just stick it out with this roster. The thing that's on I guess the wild card that could change things is the fact that they have Declan Doyle as their offensive coordinator, and Declan Doyle might have a different approach to things. Jesse Minter might have a different, I guess, value for that part of the roster. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Baltimore is at that medium level of urgency where, I mean, again, they could definitely upgrade this part of the roster. Zay Flowers is a 2, in my opinion. Bateman is a 3 in my opinion, and Devontae Walker, LeJohntay Wester, these are guys that are still figuring things out. So I say that all to say Baltimore could definitely add. Baltimore could also just decide, hey, we're the Ravens and we don't care about this position. So I'm going to say that they're in the middle of the way. Buffalo Bills basically have 5 receivers that are rosterable and ready to play. because they have played in the last year or so. DJ Moore, Josh Palmer, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Tyrell Shavers. So again, if you're drafting a player high in the draft, you're essentially making a couple of these guys useless. Now, where that could come into play is the fact that like there are a couple people they could be looking to get away from. They could have some buyer's remorse on Josh Palmer's contract. They could have some buyer's remorse on Keon Coleman's draft pick. So if they draft somebody in the first round, they could immediately look to get rid of two people. But also, if they draft nobody, they could look to hang on to everybody they have. Because again, they have 5 people that I think I went through it have got 400 yards within the last 2 years or 300. There was a number and they all met it. So you have 5 rosterable receivers yet to be determined what they do. So again, I'm going to put Buffalo into that mid-tier level of urgency. Carolina Panthers, just quickly gonna do this. I think they have no chance of drafting a receiver in the first round. 0. Why? Because they've done it for the last 2 years. They drafted T-Mac last year in the first round. They drafted Leggett the year before. It would be unheard of to go receiver back to back at the top of the draft. You have to start spreading your draft capital out to other parts of the roster. So therefore, I'm gonna go ahead and say that even though the Panthers could get better, because T-Mac, Leggett, Coker, David Moore, Jimmy Horn, John Mechie, that's not necessarily good enough, but I think that they would more be candidates to sign somebody like a Diggs or a Debo or Jawan Jennings or a Tyreek Hill. They'd be more that kind of a candidate as opposed to drafting somebody. So the Panthers, I'm going to say, have like no chance of drafting a receiver. Chicago Bears, you have Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Khalif Raymond, and Jade Walker. So you have 3 really young receivers in Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, and Jade Walker. That was their 1, 2, 3 for a few games last year, I believe. No, actually, it was when Rome Odunze got hurt that Jade Walker started to play. But I say that to say they have 3 young receivers that are going to see the field. They signed Khalif Raymond from Detroit. That's somebody who obviously has some Ben Johnson experience. So like the way I look at it, 1 and 2 are wrapped up with Burden and Odunze. And number 3 is like an open competition, I guess you could say, between Khalif Raymond and Jade Walker. So because they have 4 receivers that very much could see the football field, I don't think that's a team that's a candidate to draft a receiver this year. So we're saying that Chicago has like no sense of urgency. Cincinnati Bengals, yeah, another team with like 0. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, you already have 2 very expensive receivers, so you have to spread your capital towards the other parts of the roster. And again, they have Yoshi as the wide receiver 3. They saw some good things from Mitch Tinsley in preseason last year. Charlie Jones, I think, got some production here and there. So yeah, there's enough here at the wide receiver spot where I can't see them going receiver high in the draft. So Bengals have no urgency. Cleveland Browns, I would say they have a pretty high level of urgency to get a receiver because they have a whole lot of unproven talent here. Nothing you can bank on. And when it comes to their top 3 guys, Jerry Jeudy is like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 kind of a talent. Cedric Tillman, you're looking at like a 3. Isaiah Bond, if I were to bank on what I could consider him going into year 2, also that kind of a player. So there's definitely a need to get another receiver, even just from the standpoint of you only have 3 guys that have some type of proven production. So I would say the Browns are pretty high up in terms of their need for a wide receiver. Cowboys, I would say it's very low because you do have 4 guys that produced last year: Pickens, Lamb, Flournoy, and Turpin. Now, the only room for potentially this changing is if they can't figure out a deal with George Pickens, and then all of a sudden at that point, they would need another receiver. But at this point, that's not like this isn't a short-term kind of a deal. If there's a split between the Cowboys and Pickens, you're looking at a August, July kind of a thing. So I don't think that comes into play for them during the draft. What's going on, bro? Good to see you. Hope all is well in North Carolina. I don't know actually exactly what you've been tapped into, but Raptors and Jays haven't been so hot. So I'm happy to be talking NFL, man. But yeah, big up to you. So yeah, the Cowboys, we're gonna say like little to no urgency to draft a wide receiver at the top of the draft. Broncos, we're gonna say the same thing, right? You have Sutton, you just traded for Waddle, you still have Franklin, Pat Bryant, and Marvin Mims. That's a lot of pieces, right? They're not going receiver. Detroit, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, and Isaac Tesla, who produced at a very high level given the limited touches he had. So that's another situation where you have to be players. They also signed Greg Dortch, who's a bit of a gadget guy. There's enough players to touch the football field. There's enough young talent. There's no need for Detroit to go receiver high in the draft. Green Bay Packers. Now I'm going to say the Packers have no urgency to draft a receiver. And it's not because they can't get better, because again, right now, the receivers you have that have some track record of production are Christian Watson, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Bo Melton, and Dontavian Wicks. And like there's two receivers here you could consider potentially better than a wide receiver 3, and neither of them is a wide receiver 1. So I have some level of faith in Jaden Reed and Christian Watkins, but everybody else I don't think is particularly anything greater than a 3. A lot of people like Matthew Golden. We didn't see a whole hell of a lot last year. But the big reason I would say the Packers are almost guaranteed to not go receiver is because that team hadn't gone first round at the receiver spot in years. They finally went first round last year with Matthew Golden. I just can't see them doing it 2 years in a row. Impossible. I can't see it happening. Even though they could use it, I don't see it happening. That this is the kind of franchise that would rather give Matthew Golden another year than immediately going receiver again, especially when they have a bunch of guys that I know they have some level of belief in. If there's anything the Packers love doing, it's trusting their own when it comes to developing young players. So yeah, I don't see that happening at all. Houston Texans, I don't see them going receiver because you have Nico Collins as your one entrenched. You have two young prospects with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, who both had some level of production last year. You have guys that have some history of production in the NFL with Hutchinson and Watson, and then you have whatever you could possibly get from a healthy Tank Dell. So I say that all to say there's enough here. They're not going receiver high. Indianapolis Colts. This is a situation. Yeah, this team. I mean, okay, so it's not relevant to the video that I'm doing here because they don't have a first round pick, but they could definitely go receiver. They have, again, a whole lot of nothing here in terms of proven production. The only receivers here that they could talk about are the top 3 here, and Alec Pierce, Josh Downs. Obviously, those are 2 people who are pretty important in their plans. But their wide receiver right now is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, which we saw him produce quite a bit in Tennessee. Pretty consistently a guy who could get you 400 yards and maybe like 4 or 5 touchdowns. But last year in Miami, he did a whole lot of nothing. That's the year he's coming off of. So he signed a very cheap deal. Yeah, the Colts, I mean, could definitely draft somebody to compete with Westbrook-Ikhine. But again, they don't have a first round pick. So I mean, they don't even have the opportunity to draft somebody high. Jacksonville Jaguars. Yep, you still have Brian Thomas Jr., Jacoby Myers, and Parker Washington. So I don't see them making a move at receiver. If they do end up trading Brian Thomas Jr., then maybe. But even still, they have whatever they could potentially get from Travis Hunter. So yeah, the Jags aren't going to be one of the teams that make a move for receiver high. Again, they don't have a first round pick, so they don't necessarily factor into this video. But even with their second round pick, I can't see them going receiver. Kansas City Chiefs. I think they would definitely have to consider receiver because, again, you look at the back end of their depth chart here. There's no proven history of production with any of these guys, Remigio, Brownlee, Royals, Armstrong, or Holiday. And you look at their top 3 guys, right? Rashee Rice. I think me and a lot of people believe that he has the ability to produce on the football field, but through injury and nonsense, he's missed a lot of time over the last 2 years. And it's been a while since we've seen it. So as much as the Chiefs probably have belief in him, it wouldn't be wise to just assume that you have a wide receiver 1 guaranteed. In terms of Xavier Worthy, I mean, you would hope that he can be your wide receiver 2, but truth be told, I don't think he has demonstrated that level of ability. He kind of has more of a wide receiver 3 kind of an upside based on what he's done so far. So unless there's some growth that's coming from him, Xavier Worthy, again, productive receiver, but not like somebody you can lean on. And then Tyquan Thornton, a bit of a redemption story that they had last year. Somebody who didn't really manage to produce in New England, but seemed to have figured some things out in Kansas City. I don't think a trio of Rice, Worthy, and Thornton is quite good enough. Ever since trading Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs have kind of seem to have the organizational philosophy that receiver is one of the positions they can be light at. So from that standpoint, I don't think they would go receiver number one, but they have 2 first-round picks, and that is a position group that could be upgraded on. So I'm going to say that the Chiefs have like a mid-tier, like a medium level of urgency when it comes to drafting receiver high in the first round. Los Angeles Chargers, no way. I don't see it happening because they've got solid production from Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston. Trey Harris, I think he had like 400 yards as a wide receiver 3, their second round pick from last year. And then they still have 2 draft picks from the last 3 years behind them. So enough young talent has been like cultivated from those draft picks. But again, they've spent a lot of draft picks there already. I don't particularly see Mike McDaniel as an offensive coordinator that utilized like a bunch of different receivers in Miami ever. It was kind of always like the top 2 guys. So yeah, I see the Chargers. That's another team where I don't see them going super high for the wide receiver position. Los Angeles Rams. Okay, Rams I definitely think are candidates because, again, they have Devontae and Puka, but after Devontae and Puka, no real established receivers. And I'm just going to quickly pull up this to see how old Devontae is. 1992. So Devontae Adams will be 34 by towards the end of this upcoming regular season. So you have a pretty aging receiver here. You have Puka. What the hell? Did I just close that window by accident? That's crazy. All right, we're going to have to open up this depth chart. All right, where are the Rams? Damn, I got pretty far down the depth charts, which I'm just kind of realizing as I scroll. Hey, what's going on, Caden? Happy Easter to you. Hope you and your family are having a good time. But yeah, Jordan Whittington and Kanata Mumfield, 2 late round draft picks through the last 2 years. Not a ton of production there. A bunch of undrafted free agents behind them. But yeah, you're one Devontae Adams injury away from essentially having nothing at the wide receiver position. So from that standpoint, their only first round pick is at number 13. So it's pretty high. But I definitely think it's possible that they could go wide receiver here. They had exploratory discussions about trading Devontae. Puka himself is going to occupy a bunch of money when they eventually pay him. And I think it makes sense for them to layer that contract with a rookie deal. So I could definitely see the Rams taking a receiver here to, again, complement Puka long-term, but also just give them some insurance against Devontae Adams injuries in the short term. So the Rams are definitely there. I would say like medium, mid-tier, mid-tier level of urgency to go receiver high. Raiders, it has to be high because, again, you have 2 rookies from last year, Jack Beck and Deontay Thornton, who didn't do much. And then 2 receivers that essentially have like wide receiver 3 production in Trey Tucker and Jalen Naylor. So wide receiver has to get way better for the Raiders. What's going on, Jez? Good to see you in the chat, bro. If you have any more draft questions or anything, feel free to hit the chat. Miami Dolphins. This team has to go receiver for sure, bro. As of right now, you got Tutu Atwell and Jalen Tolbert as the only 2 receivers with any NFL production in their career, right? You have 2 draft picks from 2024, Malik Washington and Taj Washington, but there's no history of production there. Tutu Atwell and Jalen Tolbert. That's definitely not enough. So Miami's level of urgency has to be pretty high to go receiver. Minnesota Vikings, I think this situation is fascinating. And if you guys were here to watch our mock draft last week, Peter kind of had me nudged me towards the Vikings taking a receiver round 1, which I don't think I necessarily all the way had a lot of like faith in. I'm just like, fuck it, we're an hour into a live stream. Let's just make this pick and move on. But if you look at the Vikings receiver room, you have Jefferson and Addison, a clear 1 and 2. But after that, you basically have nothing after losing Jalen Naylor. Nobody here has literally, I looked at it, nobody else has more than 30 career receiving yards in the NFL. So after Jefferson and Addison, they have nothing. And it's kind of a similar situation to the Rams, I would say, where they have Addison right now, but I doubt they're going to pay him in addition to Jefferson. So I could see Addison being gone within the next year. They could definitely go receiver high, layer that rookie contract over Justin Jefferson's big contract, and that can be their situation going forward at receiver. When it comes to the long term, and in the short term, just have a wide receiver 3. But Vikings are definitely candidates to go receiver. Because again, they simply just don't have a body. As of right now, it would be Ty Felton, 3rd round pick from last year, but Ty Felton had 25 yards receiving last year. So, and maybe a part of that is how bad the Vikings quarterback situation was, but I think the Vikings are definitely candidates. What was Dan Orlovsky smoking on his take with Ty Simpson, and do you see any possibility Mendoza getting benched? Okay, what was he smoking with his Ty Simpson take? I don't know. That's just like a bad take. I think a lot of people disagree with it. I'm one of the people that disagrees with it. In terms of like what he's probably trying to say, I think he probably has a clear bias in terms of what traits are valuable in terms of understanding how what's going to get a player to be able to produce in the NFL, right? So like, and this is a different thing for different people, but everybody has their own philosophy on like, hey, if you can make this kind of a throw, then you'll be fine in the NFL. Or if you can demonstrate this ability, you'll be fine in the NFL. And I think for Orlovsky, he must have had some criteria about like a quarterback doing something on their own. Because the thing about Mendoza is Mendoza did have an elite offensive line and an elite running game. Now, I don't think that means much because I don't think he had like the best receivers in the world. Like Omar Cooper is probably going to be a 2nd round pick. He had a young receiver that's probably going to be a 1st round pick next year. Like that's pretty good, but it's not like he was getting carried by receivers. So the situation with Ty Simpson, I guess, like you could say that the offense was a bit of a mess and he had to navigate more. So when you look at certain like highlights and throws, Orlovsky's probably thinking like, oh, this is entirely because of Ty Simpson versus Mendoza's production is partially due to his team. But I just think it shows you that like the fact that thinking, it produced the take that Simpson is better than Mendoza is proof that the thinking is wrong. That's how I look at it. So bad take from Orlovsky for sure. And do I see Mendoza getting benched? Yeah. So Adam Schefter said on ESPN before the Kirk Cousins signing that the Raiders were looking to potentially have Mendoza start as the backup, similar to Patrick Mahomes, similar to there was somebody else in a recent. Oh, Josh Allen initially was the backup, and then he took over mid-year. I remember when Jared Goff was a rookie, he started as a backup and took over mid-season. So there is a bit of a history of young quarterbacks starting out on the bench. And if Clint Kubiak thinks that his offense needs to be learned to a high level before a player can play, it would make sense. Now, the thing is I think Kirk Cousins might be the wrong player for that. Like Kirk Cousins might be a little bit too shit for that purpose because he might get himself played off the field. But no, I always was under the impression that they wanted to sign a capable player so that they don't have to play Mendoza early so that he can properly learn the system. Especially again with Kubiak, it's that system comes from the Shanahan world of the offense is the superstar, right? So we're going to generate an open throw for you. We're going to generate an open, we're going to generate the right decision for you, and you just have to go and do it. And all of that from a quarterback standpoint is mentally understanding what to be looking at, where, like when in the play to be looking where, that type of stuff. So if they feel like he needs time to mentally get to a good place, then they're going to give him time. Again, my issue with Kirk Cousins is, bro, he might just show up and play so shit for 3 weeks that you have to play Mendoza anyways. So we'll see how that works. But yeah, I was always under the impression that Mendoza was going to start off as a bench player. But yeah, to jump back into what we were looking at, Patriots wide receivers. So I think the tricky thing about figuring out whether they would draft a receiver high or not is figuring out what they think about AJ Brown, because AJ Brown is probably still going to get traded in June. I've talked about it a lot, about how the contract kind of doesn't say that the Eagles can make the trade before June, but it's just tough to know, like, hey, you know, the Patriots deep down, they know they're trading for AJ Brown, so they can't go receiver. Because if we look at their receiving room right now, like Kayshon Boutte, this guy got like 500-600 yards, right? I think he showed some upside though, so maybe that's a wide receiver 2. Romeo Doubs, that's a wide receiver 2. Mac Hollins and Pop Douglas, these are wide receiver 3s. Like, this room is specifically lacking a number 1. So it's like, if I was thinking about the Patriots in the wide receiver position, it would either be round 1 or nothing, because you don't need to take more receivers in round 2 and 3 that are just going to be more of these wide receiver 2s and 3s that you already have. I mean, the Patriots are perfectly primed to make a move for a guy like an AJ Brown. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the Patriots have like a mid-tier kind of an urgency in terms of drafting a wide receiver, because look, this room is not good. Like, I know they went to the Super Bowl last year with basically this room, but Diggs instead of Romeo Doubs. But I think part of last year was the Patriots catching the world by surprise. Everyone's going to know their football a lot better going into next year. I think a lot of the same stuff will be trickier to execute. I think they need an upgrade, and they haven't had the upgrade yet, because Romeo Doubs might be a downgrade from Stephon Diggs. So, yeah, I'm going to say the Patriots probably would consider taking a receiver if the right one was there. New Orleans Saints, yes, absolutely. 2 thumbs up. This team has to consider a receiver, because they don't have much other than Chris Olave. New York Giants. Okay, this one is tricky because they have hella wide receiver 3s. Malik Neighbors, that's a wide receiver 1. But Slayton, Mooney, and Calvin Austin, those are all wide receiver 3s. So again, you have 4 bodies. Like, you have 4 guys that are going to be on the football field. Because again, you chose not to cut Darius Slayton. You chose to sign Mooney. You chose to sign Austin, right? Like, these guys are going to see the football field, but they're not actually good enough as is. So the Giants, I definitely think, belong again in that mid-tier of urgency, where if they pass on a receiver and just don't draft one, they have guys to play. But definitely the guys they have aren't good enough to stop them from drafting somebody if they like somebody. So Giants, definitely contenders to draft a receiver, but it's not like obvious. So again, they fall into that mid-tier of urgency. Jets, high tier, high level of urgency, because you don't have anything proven outside of Garrett Wilson. So you damn near don't even have NFL receivers beyond Garrett Wilson and AD Mitchell. Philadelphia Eagles, again, because I think they are going to trade AJ Brown at some point. I think that there's definitely some urgency to go receiver, because again, when it comes to proven NFL production, you really only have 3 guys: AJ Brown, Hollywood Brown, and Devontae Smith. So if AJ Brown is going to get traded at some point, you need to draft somebody meaningfully, like round 1, round 2, maybe round 3, but realistically round 1 or round 2, in order to not be ass at receiver next year. So Eagles definitely have to be there. Pittsburgh, okay, I think Pittsburgh is similar to the Rams and the Vikings, where they actually only have 2 receivers that I think are proven: DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman. But yeah, you have Roman Wilson currently at wide receiver 3, Ben Skoranek, A.T. Perry, like a whole lot of unproven players. So Pittsburgh, again, they could use a 3rd receiver even just to play in the short term. And then if you think about the long term, right, Metcalf and Pittman are not young players. You could deal with injuries. You could deal with regression. So Pittsburgh, I think, it definitely could be candidates to go receiver. I would say that they're like in that mid-tier of urgency. Seattle, nah. They just paid JSN and Rashid Shaheed. They paid Cooper Kupp last year. They drafted Torrey Horton. They still have Jake Bobo. So, Seahawks are not going receiver. Niners, I don't see them going receiver, and the main reason is because they seem to still believe in Ricky Pearsall, and then they signed 2 receivers in Mike Evans and Christian Kirk. So I don't see them making that move to add at the receiver position, especially as early as round 1, considering all the other places that they could use. All the other places that they could use the help. So the Niners, I would say, are a no. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, no, because they went receiver last year in round 1, and they have 4 guys that produced to some degree last year, right? Emeka Egbuka started out great, tapered off a little bit. Chris Godwin got healthy towards the end of the year. Jalen McMillan got healthy towards the end of the year as well, and then Tez Johnson, who had his moments. So you got 4 receivers that can play. Tennessee Titans. Okay, so you have 4 receivers that can play here. This kind of falls into the category of like, it's not that I don't think they should get a receiver, because they should, because I don't believe in this receiving room. But Alec Ayamanor and Chimere Dike, 2 rookies from last year, they both had 500 yards as rookies. So they're going to get another look next year. And then they restructured Calvin Ridley's contract to keep him. And then they signed Wan'Dale Robinson. So there's 4 receivers. Again, I don't think this receiver room is remotely good, but I think they do. And that's a problem, but I can't see them going receiver high in the draft with 4 people, including 2 draft picks from last year. And then lastly, the Commanders. I think the Commanders are definitely candidates to draft a receiver. You have Terry McLaurin as your 1, but beyond that, you have a bunch of 3s. Like Treylon Burks had a couple great catches, but I think he only racked up about 130 yards last year in the few games he played. So you can't look at 130 yards and say, oh, that's my wide receiver too. Luke McCaffrey hasn't done enough. Jalen Lane hasn't done enough. De'Ami Brown and Van Jefferson, again, 2 journeymen at this point. So I say this all to say, like, they have bodies. Like, they have 6 receivers that could at least be candidates to compete for playing time. But there's not enough talent there to just say, like, we're set. So they should definitely be candidates. So everything I just looked at throughout the stream in terms of like identifying each team's level of like desperation. Shout out to Ravens fan. No, I didn't. I didn't watch that at all. Did you? Let me know what you thought. But yeah, I basically put everything into this chart here, where what green means is that green means like, yeah, that team has like a serious just hole at wide receiver. And they genuinely like need to make a move. The mid tier of urgency that I referenced, that I put those teams in yellow, where they're candidates to go receiver because they could get better. And drafting a receiver wouldn't get in the way of their plans. But also, like, if they don't take a receiver, they have bodies to play football. Those teams are in yellow. It was a blowout. Team USA. Yeah, so I know what happened. Like, I saw that Doucette and his team beat the team of NFLers. They had Luke Kuechly looking stressed. But I didn't actually watch to have any, like, meaningful opinions. I just know what happened. And so then, yeah, in terms of this chart, I put the teams in red that I ruled out as teams that definitely won't be drafting a receiver. So I think what this kind of helps, honestly, the most important part of this like chart for me is more that like, I think that there's this group of green here on the left. When they come up in the second round, that's going to be when like most of the receivers go. So Jordan Tyson, Makai Lemon, Carnell Tate, I could see them, if not going into this in this area here, you know, at some point trickling down and getting picked by somebody in this area. But I could definitely see every other receiver dropping out of the first round, because every green team here, this is their second pick, by the way, right? So the Jets, the Browns, the Dolphins, they all pick earlier. So those teams could address receiver in theory earlier on. they could obviously have other plans, but the point is like these three greens could all be red if the team takes receiver early. And then if you start to look at these yellow teams, right? Rams, they could easily go for somebody that's more impactful win now, like early in the Super Bowl. Ravens, again, they could always choose to just not draft a receiver because they seem to like their younger talents that they draft. This isn't really a roster that's like too eager to draft receivers high. Vikings, again, they have Jefferson and Addison, so they could decide to sign a wide receiver 3. Steelers, they have 2 receivers. Eagles and Patriots, both tied to the AJ Brown situation, so you never know how that's going to go. Bills, again, they have 5 wide receivers. They just don't have anybody good, so they might just sit tight. Chiefs, also, again, another organization that might just sit tight. So there's really no guarantee that any of these teams in these 2 columns go receiver. All I know, having seen this, is that like I expect the Browns, Commanders, like this area here, 6 to 11. If I had to put money on it, I think maybe 2 receivers go in that area. So Tate and then one of Tyson and Lemon, and then the other one of Tyson and Lemon that doesn't go, one of them will get picked up somewhere here. And then I have your Denzel Boston's, Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper, those kind of receivers. I mean, just based on things, I see them going round 2 in this area of the draft again. So like the Raiders in round 2, I could see them with their first pick going receiver. The Jets, if they don't go receiver at 2 or 16, I see them going receiver at the top of the second, right? Browns, if they didn't get their receiver at 6 or 24, they're going receiver. Commanders, I don't know if they still have this pick, but if they did have a second round pick and they don't take a receiver at 7, they're going receiver, right? Saints, if they go somewhere else, then they're going receiver in round 2. Dolphins, if they didn't get somebody 11 to 30, yeah, that's where I have it happening. So I say that all to say, like, I do think that the receiver run, like the floor is going to be this part of the second round, first 10 picks of the second round. And because there's that, like, again, there's all these teams that probably aren't going receiver. Somebody's going to be pissed. Like, somebody's going to get drafted a lot later than they should. Full games are on Fox YouTube channel. NFL also officially announced that they are creating a professional flag football league on social media accounts. Yeah, no, I definitely heard about that. And I saw that it was broadcasted. Truthfully, bro, I just like, I don't know. It didn't seem interesting to me. Like, I didn't have personally an interest in like watching the game or seeing what happened, or yeah, it just, I don't think that was my thing. But okay, keeping all this in mind, I was thinking about going through a couple mock drafts. And keeping in mind how I see like the areas of the first round where it makes sense for receivers to go. Mock draft. Fansided, Yahoo Sports, USA Today. Nah, give me some. Oh, Kuiper. Is this a Kuiper draft? No. Man. All right, let's just stick with those 2 first. Chad Router. No, that works. So Mendoza, Reese, Mawigoa, Bailey, Love, Monroe Freeling, Mansour Delane, Caleb Downs, Ruben Bain. Okay, so he has the receivers all dropping out of that receiver area. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where he has the receivers going. In my opinion, if something like this happens on draft night, then it's kind of cooked for some of these receivers. Like, somebody is going to fall late. I can't see them all going in the 10s. Carnell Tate 11. Okay, so I had the Dolphins as one of the teams. Now, I kind of don't think Dolphins are going to go receiver for other reasons. They talked about wanting to build like a big physical football team, but that's definitely a possibility, right? Okay. Carnell Tate, Sonny Styles, Spencer Fano, Venga Ione, Omar Cooper. Okay, project. So he has the Rams trading down. Rams, again, another team I have as a possibility. A trade down would kind of be interesting and make sense here, because if you're in need of a receiver and receiver has fallen to this part of the draft, I think you could look around and see that, hey, not a lot of these teams are likely to go receiver. We can trade down and get our guy. In this case, he has Omar Cooper as the second receiver. I disagree, but that's where he has the second receiver going. Where is the third receiver? Jordan Tyson to the Browns. So the Browns again that's another team we have, number 6. In this case, they're trading up from 24 to 22. But again, that's one of the teams. 3 picks in the top 22. The Makai Lemon going to the Eagles. That's one of the other teams we saw as a possibility. But KC Concepcion going to the Bills. I had the Bills as an option, right? Yep. 26. The Bills are possible candidates. And then probably no receivers the rest of the way. Keldrick Falk, CJ Allen, Chris Johnson. Yeah. So, I mean, this draft was interesting because of all the trades. The thing is like, personally, I don't really factor for trades. I don't really factor for trades at all. But I mean, again, like, they're going to happen. It kind of makes things hard to project. But in a draft, like, what I'll say that stood out from his mock is that, like, most people would see more than one receiver going in the top 16, but he kind of got at what I was getting at, which is, I mean, if they don't go high, they're probably going to trickle down into later parts of the draft than you would expect. Why would the Dolphins sign Malik Willis when he only started less than 10 games? Well, I mean, the thing about the NFL is that the quality of quarterback play is so low that it doesn't take a lot for a team to... It doesn't take a lot for a player to make a good impression. And, bro, Malik Willis played good in the brief little stints that he played in Green Bay. Like, he beat the Bears. Did he not? No, he didn't beat the Bears. He beat somebody, though. But, yeah, he played well against the Bears, stuff like that. So, look, these teams are desperate. That was all it took to look like a starter in somebody's eyes. Now, I don't know if he's going to be a starter in the NFL. So I hear you what you're saying in terms of like, hey, are we sure this guy's good? But 2, I think the Dolphins made a horrible decision paying any level of money to a quarterback when they're planning to tank. Because if anything, they just fucked Malik Willis over. Like, he's going to have a hard time succeeding with like no receivers, bro, because that's what his current situation is. Okay, and then this mock is what? This mock is all of ESPN's big hitters. Mendoza 1, Reese 2, Maui Goa, David Bailey, Jeremiah Love, Makai Lemon 6. Okay, so there's the beginning of this range here. So let's see if any more go. Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Kenyon Sadiq, Matur Delane, Carnell Tate. So that's the end of the range. But this is, again, the other... one of the other teams that I identified as a team that has to go receiver. Now, in this mock, by the way, Browns and Dolphins got their picks. That means that these picks would be red here. Browns and Dolphins are not going receiver anymore at 24 and 30. So we'll see where the receivers fall now. But with Tate and I think Lemon, Tate and Lemon off the board, where does Tyson go? So he has Tyson to the Rams. Rams at 13. So shit, I mean, the Jets kind of got screwed here. Let's see if he has the Jets or if they have the Jets going receiver. Yep. Oh my goodness. Jets going Omar Cooper. I think that would be outrageous value. But surely there's like no receivers for the rest of the mock, right? Keldrick Falk, Max. No receivers for the rest of the mock. Oh, KC Concepcion to the Niners? Are there any more? Oh, man, I do not have the Niners going receiver at all. I think if they have... I mean, okay, again, this is my belief. I just think that they're going to give Ricky Pearsall another year. If they've given up on Ricky Pearsall, then sure, go receiver. I would just be shocked if they did that. I also think that this would be way too high for KC Concepcion. So there's that as well. Shit. Okay, let's look at one more mock draft and see how it lines up with some of the stuff we came up with. Parents started USA Today, Whitfield. Who are these people, dog? I just want a reputable mock. You know what? Let's just do Walter Football. but not Walter. Let's do Charlie. So I've been reading these mock drafts for a while. Charlie Campbell is damn good at what he does. Where is okay, Charlie. So this is from March 30th, but you got Mendoza 1, Arvel Reese 2, Maui Goa 3, Love 4, Fano, Caleb Downs 6, Jordan Tyson 7. Okay, that's the Commanders. This is the first mock having the Commanders going receiver, but there's one of our spots. Carnell Tate 8, so that's another spot. Sonny, any more? Okay, then Mekhi Lemon 13. All right, so I think like through the mocks that we Denzel Boston to 16, 16 to the Jets. Oh my goodness, that would be outrageous. Where else are the receivers going here? Caden Proctor, Dylan Theineman, Keldrick Falk, Avion Terrell, Peter Woods, Kenyon Sadiq, Monroe Freeling, Lee Hunter, Casey to the Diners again. Damn, I think that would be a huge mistake. Okay, you know what's interesting? I think like two different timelines are being painted from these mock drafts, right? Basically, either the receivers go high in this area, and that means some of these teams here start to reach. So like in the case of the mock drafts, we've seen the Jets and the Niners making some fucking huge reaches, or they don't go this high and they start to fade like to picks later than you would expect, right? So we saw in one of the mocks where the receivers went late, Mekhi Lemon at 17, right? But we've seen Mekhi Lemon at 6 and at 17. So like this will be the part of the draft to watch for when it comes to receiver, because they're either going to go there and teams are going to make some crazy reaches behind them, or they're going to fall and probably fall further than you expect, because again, the urgency just isn't there for teams. So that's the state of the wide receiver position, people. Shout out to everybody that's tapped in. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I will be back this time next week to do another mock draft. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to do. We're about 20 days from the draft. I think. No, less. Fucking 18 days. So yeah, we're going to get an opportunity to have a great time on live stream when it comes to the draft. I'll be live for the first 2 nights. But yeah, I'll see you guys then. Take care. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys this time next week. I'll be on my basketball channel quite a bit in the meantime. But yeah, in terms of this channel, I'll see you guys in a week. I'm out. Take care. I'll let Stephen A. Smith do the honors.
Y'all take it easy. I'm out. Y'all take